Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Thunderstock Show, a collection of valuable brainstorms to enhance your life, liberty, and pursuit of property. Today's special guest is Kevin Oleszewski. Kevin started his career in 2012 as an advisor at a big wirehouse. He had earned his CFP designation, his EA in 2017, and during his journey, he realized he just liked being a planning and strategy person for the client relationship. He's worked at several places such as PNC Private Bank as a vice president wealth strategist in their planning group. And then most recently, he joined the Carson Group as a senior wealth planner on the advanced planning team. Welcome aboard. Can't wait to jump in on this podcast with you.
Thanks, Ross. Thanks for having me.
So the first question I have before we get into the tactical business stuff, it's very rare that I meet another professional with cauliflower ear that rivals the likes of mine.
Yep.
How'd you get it?
Yep. So I got it the most unconditional way that you will ever hear, right? It's probably the only way someone who's listening to this will ever hear. I played small Division III baseball in college, and I was a pitcher, but we were beating a team pretty bad. So the coach said, "Hey, what pitcher wants to hit? This guy does. I haven't hit in forever, right? So I'm gonna go hit." Well, they brought in a kid throwing 94, 96, and not on purpose hit me in the head with it. They weren't as bad as they are now. I played with them, made them a lot worse, but that is how the cauliflower ear started.
So the way that it must have jostled your helmet, is
Yeah.
that right?
Yep.
Well, thank goodness you had a helmet, I guess, because I probably could
Yeah.
have been way worse.
Yeah, it was a pretty good concussion though, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, my goal every day is to learn something new. Today, it's 9:57 and I've already done that. So thank you for that story. That's wild. I guessed wrestling, jiu-jitsu, and boxing, and you're like, nope. So going back into mental health and post concussion, we made a full recovery. Can you tell me at what age did you decide, like, how did you know you wanted to do what you're doing, and when did you make that decision?
So I didn't know what I wanted to do, right? Until, I don't know, 7 years ago, I guess, really. Started my career as an advisor at one of the big wirehouses, Merrill Lynch. But prior to that, I needed, back to college, I needed an internship to graduate. It was a requirement to graduation. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I'm in this accounting degree program, knowing I don't want to do accounting. Um, but I went to that school for a different major, switched to accounting just as a default because they didn't have finance. Um, so looking around, talking to my uncle, he's like, "Hey, my Uncle John, which is his brother-in-law, uh, is a client at a UBS. When we see if they need somebody." So I started my career as an intern at UBS, and those guys were big portfolio management guys, and that's what they did. And I cold called for them, and it was great. So I thought I was going to go be a portfolio manager, right? And then go to Merrill Lynch, start my career, realize that's a very small part of the job. You need clients, so it's really a sales job. So I do that for a couple of years, and I move over to
Mm.
Wells Fargo for a couple of years. But during that time at Wells Fargo, I realized I started my CFP designation because everybody in the industry was getting it, and I was like, you know what? If I want to advance in my career, that's what I need. And during that time,
CFP, for those who are listening that aren't familiar, is Certified Financial Planner, right?
yep, yes.
See, typically when I think of CFP, I don't think of these investment type banks. But that's really interesting that when you were doing that journey, that's where and did they endorse it and pay for it?
Yeah, yeah, they paid for it. Yep, yep.
Cool.
Although I was on the wealth management side of their business, right?
Hmm.
Industry was moving towards planning, right? It was going that way, and I realized that's what I needed. So I got my certified financial planner designation. Started that in 2015, and as you said, finished that in 2016. But during that time, I realized I just like being the planner. I just like being the strategy guy for the clients. I don't like finding them. I'll help you close them, but I don't want to be the one finding them, right? I rather talk about your insurance needs and your tax needs and your estate planning and investments from a high level. Hey, we should be a moderate portfolio or aggressive portfolio, and here's how you fund your kids' college and that kind of stuff. That's what I really
You,
enjoy.
you want to help people, not find people to help.
Correct. Correct. That is the best way. I've actually, I'm going to start using that, Russ. I want to help people, not finding people to help. I really like that. But that's really what I liked. That's really what I liked and what I wanted to do. So that's why I transitioned over to PNC Private Bank as a VP-Wealth Strategist there after I passed my CFP. Then when I got there, I was like, okay, what's next? Right? What's next? I got my enrolled agent designation. Prior to joining PNC, I kind of skipped a step there, but between me passing my CFP exam and going to PNC, well, about a year and a half later, I started my enrolled agent license. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I didn't want to be a full-time advisor anymore as it stood at a wirehouse, but I wanted some more tax knowledge. So I got my EA designation there, or license there. Got my fast forward another year, right? I'm at PNC Private Bank now. And then in 2018, I started my master's in tax at Villanova. So I started my master's in tax at Villanova with a concentration in estate planning because, again, looking around, seeing what everybody had at the senior planner level was a JD, a CPA, a master's in tax, or a combination. I wasn't going to law school, wasn't taking the CPA exam, so master's in tax it was,
Yeah, it
right?
sounds like you knew you didn't want to be a CPA from a younger age,
Yeah, I did
right?
not want to do that. Nor did I really have the right. You need 150 credits to do that at the time, and
That's a
I didn't.
lot.
It's 100. Yeah, I didn't have 150 credits, so you needed to have a master's degree of some kind. So I was like, well, if I ever want to go get the CPA designation after that, I still need to do the master's, right?
Hmm.
So that's kind of where I went there, and then stayed there for 4.5 years. Loved the job. Then I got recruited over to Carson in their senior as a senior wealth planner there, and then about almost
What
a year
made,
ago.
I know you got recruited, but what was the instance where you're like, hey, this is a better opportunity over here? Like what drove your
I
decision?
felt growth opportunity, right? To work on bigger clients. The whole reason why I got my master's in tax was to go work on more complex and bigger clients.
Hmm.
So I got the opportunity to do that and learn new things. I always want to be learning new things. I felt like I kind of maxed out what I was doing in that group at PNC from a knowledge standpoint. I wanted more challenging, more bigger clients. But now currently I'm the director of planning for the Doylestown office at Carson. So that is my current role where I get to still work with clients, but also lead the process of what planning looks like as well.
So you're maxed out on strategy and leadership. Those are some of the things that you're really doing on day to day.
Correct.
I love talking to people that have the same career focus of strategy and leadership, just not always in marketing. It's fun. It's fun to see similar job function, totally different business vertical. So my next question for you, Kevin, is what does an ideal work week look like? If you could spend your time doing, I I say work week because a lot of people are like, oh, I'd like to go golfing or I'd like to,
Yep.
spend time with kids. Yeah, of course. But for me, if you don't have work at least at 40 hours, then you can't hate what you do. And because we're talking, you don't hate what you do. But what is an ideal work week? You get to work on the projects and the things that you really
Yep.
want to do. What does that look like?
Yeah. So I love client work, right? I don't want to fully get rid of that. So if I could do that, let's say 40 to 50% of my time, right? Then I'm happy with that. The other 50 is probably broken up. I love developing people, right? I love showing people how to do things, teach them new things. So if I could spend another, let's say 25 to 30% doing that, right? That would be great. And then so let's say 20% just to make math easy. So now that's 70% of my time. I'd say the next 20% would be developing streamlining strategies for the business itself, right? So now I'm at 90% of it. And then the 10% is the compliance part. Like, hey, do you have your FPAs? Right. You have to do that kind of stuff, right? Not that but again, right, if I can focus that little bit on it, then that would be great. Right. Do you have your FPAs done? Do you have stuff loaded into Salesforce for us to track plans and things like that? If I can only spend 10% of my day doing that, that would be ideal.
And how close is your current week schedule to your ideal?
It's not too far off. Not too far off, right? I don't do enough developing, I don't think, because the team's kind of smaller, right? There's only one real junior person, more junior than me. on the team right now, and he's great. He's gonna be an absolute rock star. He has the 1-2. He has a skill set, so he's gonna be an absolute rock star. But I spent a lot of time, right? New director of planning, right? New processes. So I spent a lot of time of putting processes in place right now. I'm spending a lot of times of auditing those processes, right? Like, hey, we need an FPA for this client. I know we haven't done it before, but now we need it, right? So it's that
For
kind of
people that
stuff.
are listening that don't know what an FPA stands for, can you explain
Oh,
what
I'm
that
sorry.
is?
Yep.
There you
Financial
go.
plan agreement. So it just
Oh,
so if you do investments and planning there from a regulatory standpoint, they're technically two separate services. So you need two separate agreements. So we have to have that on file. And then the deliverable, right? What am I giving the client has to be on file too for every single client that we're doing
so
plan.
as much as you're not going back to one of your previous roles where you're going out and calling and trying to find people to help, you're making sure that the people you are here to help, you're legally compliant with, and no one's going to raise heck about it if you do help them.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like your career and what you do is there's a degree of organizational aptitude and detail orientation. Thank goodness for people, that are wired differently than one another. Because for someone like me that doesn't know the first thing about tax code, that might consume a ton of content on social media about how to invest, if you don't have someone like you, then they're just really in the dark. And I don't think that your this is not for legal disclaimers to stay compliant. This is not investment advice, but don't listen to Instagram influencers only.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, generally, yeah, that's not a good idea, right? Get somebody with at least experience in the industry. I'm not the person who says, "Oh, you need to talk to a CFP or this designation or that designation or this designation." Because look, I know people who have their certified financial planner designation who I wouldn't trust, and I know people who don't have it who I would. Right. So, just because they have this designation doesn't mean they're fully competent, but it does give a good idea.
So, as far as the industry goes, I've talked to people that are entry level at Northwest Mutual, and
Mhm.
I've talked to people that own boutique hedge funds and people in between, right? Can you kind of tell me where your position fits in the spectrum of these financial services, financial planning? Like what makes your angle unique, and like who is it unique to? Like who is the ideal person to help?
Yeah, so my role, right, is unique, right? I am not a producing advisor,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm a salary plus bonus person, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'm going to help you bring in assets, right? That's part of the gig, right? But I'm not paid off of revenue. So when I am giving you advice, it's just that it is advice. I don't care what product you do, if you even do it per se, right? My
Mm.
job is to go, here's the advice I'm giving you.
You're not a product pusher.
I am not. I believe not one product fits everybody, but there is a product for everybody, right? If it was that bad, it wouldn't exist. They're just
You would
improperly
think, right?
bundled,
But
right?
there should be
They're just
regulations and guardrails and market demand. You'd think that
yep,
if it was bad, it wouldn't exist.
yep. It's just misplaced,
Mm.
right? So that's where I fit, and what our target client really is that retirees typically where we are spending a lot of our time. We're spending a lot of our time on people who are almost retired or are retired. That's where we spend a lot of our time. Why? Because they're the ones with the assets.
Mm.
And our business model typically right now is assets under management, right? With a
Mm-hmm.
fee. So for much as I would love to work with a doctor who just came out of residency, who goes from making 70 grand to 500 grand, we don't have the capacity to do that. I would
And
love to.
typically they need to have several six figures up to several seven figures.
Yeah,
And that's the
our
personal
minimum is
side,
500.
right?
Yes,
500 men.
that's our 500 minimum because we don't charge separately for planning and for investment advice and for insurance reviews and all that. It's just all wrapped into one, right? So if you're a client with us, you're a client with us, you get all of this. But that's why.
Wh- What are uh, what are some of the things that have happened in your career, Kevin, that really stand out in terms of giving you the affirmation or inspiration to keep going and getting your certificates and you're continuing at and keep advancing? Like I don't think the majority of people that I meet that are high achievers are just only motivated by money. There's usually something deeper there. It's like what motivates you and what keeps you motivated?
Yeah, what motivates me is just to keep being the best person I can from a professional and personal standpoint, right? That's my goal. My mantra is 1% better every day, right? That's how I live my life. If I can be 1% better every day, and I'll look back, start January 1, look back December 31st. If I get 1% better every single day, that's a significant difference. And
Compound
that
interest.
compound interest, right? It works for you or against you, right? So I make sure it works for me. So just to be the best advisor that I can. So when my clients go back, yeah, Kevin was great at this. Kevin helped me with this, right? I'm happy to be with this group because Kevin gave me this advice or the team gave me this advice, and I don't want to be anywhere else, right? So just giving the best advice possible is what really motivates me, and to be the best, to be seen as one of the best in the business, again, motivates me.
I think it's incredibly important to systemize and create a process and defining what success and better looks like because, like you said, with the Kaizen principle, compound interest either works for you or against you. It doesn't. It you don't. You're only stagnant when you're dead, in my opinion. So, what are some of the ways that you define and how do you define what better looks like and success looks like? And how do you measure it? Because I think when you have a goal without a plan, it's simply a wish. So
Oh, I
how
love that. That actually used to be my cover of my pitch book when I was an advisor.
really?
That saying right there was my actual cover page.
If you can't tell, I've talked to plenty of people in accounting and finance, and I've stolen their clips.
Yep. So how do I measure it? I don't know if I do a good job of that, to be honest with you, Ross. My way I kind of think of it is, would I have done this if I saw this last time? Right? Did
Mm,
I gain knowledge from the last time I saw this to now that makes my recommendation different? And
hmm
if it's yes, then okay, great, I got better at it. If it's I gained knowledge, but it's still the same result, that's fine too. But it's did I gain some other knowledge from the last time I saw this that then changed my process a little bit on coming to a conclusion on how we should attack this situation?
Looking at every success or failure, not as a win or loss, but as a series of learning opportunities to build the total base of your foundation. Yeah, people need to look at it like that. Full
Right?
stop.
As Edison said, right? I didn't fail 100 times. I just found 100 ways that a light bulb did not work.
I think the fastest way to success is failing
Mhm.
because it means you're trying and you're getting out of your comfort zone and you're expanding your base. One of the most important skills that I found in marketing that's not taught that you have to just put the reps in is pattern recognition. So when you work with I'm sure that the people you work with and the people you manage and lead, right, which is the other side of the coin we don't talk about enough, come from all different shapes and sizes, all different backgrounds, industries, you name it. Like every person's unique and they're different. But the situations that they're in, like you said, with there's no wrong program, there's just wrong match. So, what are some of the patterns you recognize, both with how you serve clients and finding solutions, creating heuristics to get to conclusions? And what are some patterns in leadership that have served you well?
Yeah, so the client ones is, I'll say easy, but it's definitely easier, right? It's the biggest ones that I can see from clients is, am I going to be okay? Right? Because we deal with a lot of retirees. It's, am I going to be okay? That is the number one question I get, right? And then the next one is, if I'm not here, is my spouse going to be okay?
Mm.
And not to stereotype it, it's generally husband to wife, right? It's usually, right. I don't want to stereotype it, but that's
No.
generally how it
But if you're
works.
speaking right to me, I'll go back and say you nailed it.
Yeah, right. Like, so those are the two. And what I end up doing, how do I show them that it's okay? I show them that they're going to be okay, not once, not two ways, but three different ways, right? Three different ways. I look at it at three different ways. One is, here's the Monte Carlo, and we can get into statistical analysis if you want to, right?
Ooh,
That's
I haven't heard Monte Carlo.
that's way down the weeds. I don't necessarily want to go there, but we can. The other one is a straight line. Here's a conservative rate of return. Here's how it looks, right?
Mhm.
And then the third way is, you died at 10 years from now. Here's the impact to your spouse. And I'll do that for each of them, right? I'll do that for each of them. So I'm not playing into one or the other, right? So I'll run those three different scenarios. That's how I answer that question. Are you going to be okay? Here's how and here's why you're going to be okay.
I'm
And
gonna
then
switch.
go
Oh, go
ahead.
ahead. No, go ahead and leadership thing. I definitely want to hear that one.
Yeah, I mean the leadership thing is very similar. I'm an educator at heart too. I teach at multiple different places, three different CFP programs. The American College, Immaculata University, and Stockdale University are the three CFP programs that I teach in. Mostly at American College and Immaculata. Stockton comes in and out just because of scheduling. But anyway, it's listening where they want to go, right? Like, where do you want to go? And just being that support for wherever they want to go, right? I've met with people and mentored people that go, look, I'm in this role, but I don't want the next role. I want that role over there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, great. Not everybody wants that next, like the next rung up, right? Like associate planner to planner, right? They want associate planner to maybe investment advisor. Okay, great. So here's how we get there, right? Then coming up with just being a support person for that person. That to me, that's the key to leadership, right? It's not getting them to where you want them to be. It's getting them to where they want to be.
You're helping people reach their financial destination, whether it's your clients, that one's a bit more obvious.
Mm-hmm.
They want to make sure they're okay. But if it's your people on your staff that you're charged to lead and manage, you're making sure you're starting with the end in mind. What's your goal? We're going to figure out the right path and performance metrics to get you there. And
Yep.
at the end of the day, you're helping people achieve their financial goals. I don't think life should be all about business. I know that we talked a bit, we both have busy professional lives, we have family lives too. We both have families that we take care of and wives and kids. I think one thing that is often neglected when I talk to high performers is how they take care of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
We're both wearing athletic wear. I think we both look pretty darn good. It's a professional, and honestly, I think if we could all be honest, it wasn't always this way that I was like comfortable wearing professional clothing on camera or whatnot. I had my own health and fitness journey, but how does health and fitness and I don't want to say self-care, but self-development play into your life, and how does that affect your career?
Yeah. So I told you a little bit about this, and I'll share here. Right at the end of 2022, I went to the doctor for a checkup, and they're like, "Yeah, you have some bad markers, and your cholesterol's a little high." This was probably the fall, right? Eat better, come back in November. I'm like, yeah, whatever, right? I didn't do it. Came back in November, it was worse. And she's like, "Oh, maybe I'm not clear. You're gonna have significant health problems if you don't change.
Mm.
Like you have significant health problems." I'm like, "Oh, okay. Two young kids, right? Like I want to be a good dad, right? I want to be around." So I changed the way right, literally January 1 of that year, changed it. So from 23, all of 23, all of 24, and started 25, 8 different different right now I work out minimum 5 days. Most of the time it's 6 days a week. Um, I eat differently. I was 209 pounds at the end of 2022. I'm 162 pounds today, right? So yeah, I'm back down to less than my college playing weight, right? When I played college ball, I played at about like 165. So I'm less than that right now. And the way it makes me better from a person standpoint, right, is I'm a better dad now. I have more energy. I didn't realize I had lack of energy, but I did, right? Looking back now,
You don't know until you're on the other side.
yeah, right. And I think even from a job standpoint, right, I feel like I'm quicker, right?
Mm.
I feel like I get to the end result better. I can think on my feet quicker. I have less days of like brain fog, right? Like I would have days I'm just like, man, I just can't get out of my own way, right? I still have those days. Everybody's got the days, but it's a lot less, right? Instead of it being once a week or whatever, right now it's like once a month or once every other 6 weeks or something like that, right? It's a lot less. So that's how that all um affects it. Look, I apply 1% better to everything, right? So not just my job, but the personal life too, right? My goal in fitness is to be 1% better, right? Today, I was like, I'm going to talk to a nutritionist. That was like a couple weeks ago. So my wife set me up with a nutritionist call. I want to see if I can eat better and get better results, right? Like so I did that today before our call here, right? So, um, I'm not afraid to say that. I'm always trying to look to get better.
One of the things that I started this podcast with in mind is helping people to obtain and define what a good life looks like. And the more I talk to people, the more I learn. That stool has at least three legs. There's probably more, but there's your family, your fitness, and your finance. Three F's.
Mm-hmm.
And if one of those stools is lacking or shaky, you're going to fall off your seat and you're probably not going to be sitting at the table having a good life. The Kaizen principle, it should be mandatory teaching in every high school. That would be my one request. But if you could change the world, you had the power to hit a button and solve a big problem, the domino problem. If you knocked over this one issue, what would that issue be, and why would you choose to solve that issue?
Yep. So it'll be a little self-serving, right? I think financial education. There is no, I shouldn't say no. Generally, right? Some states have mandated it, but generally, there is no financial requirement from education from a financial literacy standpoint in high schools and colleges. I think that should be a mandatory course, mandatory series of courses throughout those times, right? Not everybody goes to college. I'm not saying everybody has to go to college. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that's why I think high school is where it needs to start, right? It needs to start in high school. So you get that base. So you go to trade school, right? Which are great jobs, great jobs.
High demand.
Go to trade schools and you become a plumber, electrician, a mechanic, whatever that is, right? You have the financial skills to go, hey, I know what a 401k is. I know how to manage my budget. I know how compound interest works for me and against me, right? I know what a mortgage looks like. I know what these things look. I know what type of insurance I should look at buying, right? If I'm an independent contractor, I probably need some disability insurance. I know that now because I took some basic courses. Not that you need to be an expert on what type of disability or what type of investments you should put, but the concept of like, hey, like I know I need to do this, right? There's people in my life who I know who had no concept of that, and if I wasn't there, they wouldn't be doing it,
Mm.
right? So, and it's not their fault. They go, oh, well, I got a pension. I'm like, yeah, but you have this. You have to put money here too.
Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah, right. So that's the one thing I would fix because how do we expect somebody to make decisions with no basic information and knowledge?
Kevin, so much of my job as a marketer is not, people think it's just get me leads, build my brand. That's like the end result, like the output. The inputs are, I would say, probably two-thirds education. Letting people know who you help, how you do it, why you do it, how it actually benefits them. Education is so important, not just formal education, not just in business, but it really is no matter what you do, I think education will help you, you know? So I love that answer. And it, at the end of the day, I'm going to butcher this stat, but I believe it's something to the effect of half of Americans don't have a positive net worth above like five figures because of debt. And again, don't quote me on that. This is not financial advice, but I've seen it where there's people that might have high income earning positions and they still don't invest and they spend more than they make.
Mhm.
So that's the last thing I'll say. I love that answer. It's the first one of my interview series that's answered that way. Now, as much as education is concerned, I want to educate the audience right now. If they want to get in touch with you, maybe someone's looking to get their CFP certification and wants to talk to somebody that helps them get that. Maybe someone has 500K of assets and they're like, hey, Kevin's my guy. How can people get a hold of you? And what's the best way to get in touch?
Yeah, so right, LinkedIn is an approved way, right? It's just my first name, well, with all my designations at the end of it, right? You can find me there. On LinkedIn, I'm on X and Twitter. K_Oleszewski is my Twitter handle, or X as it's called now. I still have a problem calling it X for some reason. Um, but right, carsonwealth.com, right? Carsonwealth, you can find us there as well. Yeah, happy to chat on anything, right? Even if it's just like, hey, how do what did the CFP do for you? I can tell you, right? Change my career, right? The certified financial planner designation changed my career. Um, if it's, hey, how you working out? What are you doing, right? I happy to do that too, right? I'm happy to just chat with anybody, right? About it all, right? So that's how you kind of get a hold of me for that.
That concludes today's episode. Everyone listening, I hope that this conversation sparks something in your brain to help you improve your family or your fitness or your financial situation. Kevin, I want to say thank you for helping people reach their financial destination, whatever that may be. My only other ask is, if you're listening to this and you enjoyed the episode, the best gift that you can give for free is to share something you found valuable with another. Until next time, everyone, Thunderstock Marketing wants you to be well.